Welcome to Lesson 8 in Unit 13, Adapting to Change. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, what do fossils tell us about ecosystems from long ago? They will figure out that the living and non-living parts of ecosystems change over time, both long and short amounts of time. Fossils of organisms can tell us about what environments looked like a long time ago compared to today. In the Engage portion of the lesson, students will discuss how ecosystems change over long periods of time. Start by asking them to think, pair, and share about how their neighborhood or their school has changed since they have been born. Then explain that in this lesson they will compare ancient history to today. Ask about how they think Missouri may have changed over millions of years. Give them time to discuss how plants and animals may have looked millions of years ago, and then record a few answers to revisit later in the lesson. In the Explore portion of the lesson, start by asking students what they know about fossils. Be sure that they know fossils are very old impressions of dead organisms that have been preserved in rock. Give each group of students a tray with sand and buried fossils that you prepared prior to the lesson. After they spend time finding fossils in their tray, give them the plastic container with the fossil pictures to try to match them with what they found in the sand. Ask students where they think the fossils are from and to support their ideas. Use this slideshow to show students what some fossils look like in larger form. Explain that these kinds of fossils can be found in Missouri, and then ask students what this means about how Missouri ecosystems have changed over a very long time. Give them some time to discuss as groups and share out their ideas. In the Explain portion of the lesson, start by showing students a video on crinoids, Missouri's state fossil, and give them time to ask questions about what they have learned in the video. Next, show this video of continent movement. Relate the content in the video back to the examples of fossils in the kit by asking them if any of the fossil species are still alive today. Where might these species live? As students look at each example, use this student journal page, Fossil Data, to record what they learn in a data table. Teacher guidance on each species and where they might be found is in the notes at the bottom of the fossil slideshow. After all data is collected, engage students in a discussion about what conclusions can be drawn from analyzing the data. It is important for students to know that areas of Missouri that are now land were once underwater. Continue supporting their understanding of fossils in Missouri by giving students access to this reading, Ancient Missouri. After reading, discuss with them what new understandings they have about how Missouri ecosystems have changed over time. Ask students to look for connection between the reading and the fossil evidence from earlier in the lesson, then think, pair, and share about what connections they made. Then continue the discussion by asking students to think about how the fossil record shows living things that are no longer in the ecosystem where those fossils were found. What ideas do students have that may explain why there are differences? After students turn and talk about the differences, record their ideas to refer to later in the lesson. Students should conclude that ecosystems and the organisms that live in them change over time. One way to observe environments from long ago is by looking at the fossil record, looking at what organisms are extinct, which survived, and which evolved. In the Elaborate portion of the lesson, continue the discussion comparing ancient Missouri to today's Missouri. Ask students about ecosystems changing on Earth. Could Missouri look very different in the future? Besides nature, what causes changes in ecosystems? How can we connect this to what we have learned about how living things interact in an ecosystem? Give students time to turn and talk about ecosystems, then share out their ideas about what causes changes over time. Then read this book, No Monkeys, No Chocolate. A read-aloud guide is available in the teacher pages. By the end of this book, students should be able to identify examples of ecosystem interactions between the plants and animals in the book. In the Evaluate portion of the lesson, give students access to this student journal page, Ecosystem Change Over Time. After students have completed the journal page, return to the unit level phenomena, asking what they have figured out in this lesson that will help them determine a solution to the disappearing bees in Bill's story. It may be helpful to record these responses on chart paper so that students have evidence of how their thinking about this phenomena is changing over time. By the end of this lesson, students will describe how ecosystems can change and how living things might respond to that change. They will also use fossils to provide evidence of organisms and environments that lived long ago.